and I think we'll get started. So, welcome to Bobcat Chat Student Edition, which is our pretty fun name for what we just like to call a really informal, super casual student panel. Basically, I'll start by introducing myself as the moderator, and then I'll introduce my wonderful panelists. Um, all of us here with you this evening are current Bates students. So you're getting a really good example of the experience of a Bates student. You have 5 of us to ask questions to. I'll really just be moderating. And this panel tonight, this event tonight is for you. So I have some questions that I think you might be curious about that I'm definitely going to ask, but this panel goes much smoother and we'll have a better time if you all ask the questions that you are dying to know about what it's like to go to Bates. So I'm sure that you guys are all Zoom experts right now, but if you look to the bottom, you'll see a question and answer button, and that's where you can ask us any of your questions. We might type our answers, we might send you links, we might answer live. There's all sorts of ways that we can answer your questions tonight, but we really, really encourage you to use the Q&A function, because otherwise it'll be the 5 of us just talking about things that we feel like talking about, which is entertaining, but not nearly as entertaining as answering your questions. So please use the Q&A function. I'm going to start by introducing myself. My name is Dylan. My pronouns are she, hers. I'm a current senior at Bates College. I'm an environmental studies major with a focus in ecology and earth systems. I have 2 minors in education and religious studies. I'm from San Francisco, California. At Bates, I'm the president of our feminist collective. And I work in our peer tutoring center as a writing tutor. And last year I was studying abroad in the Caribbean, where I was studying tropical marine ecology. So those are a couple of things I like to highlight about my Bates experience. Again, I'm only moderating this evening. So with that, I will pass it off to Isabel to introduce herself.
Hi guys, I'm Isabel. I'm a current junior at Bates. I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York. I'm a dance and politics major and an education studies minor. Besides working in admissions, I have some jobs on campus. I work at the gym. I'm the social media coordinator for the theater and dance department. And I'm also the recruitment director for the Bates Dance Marathon, which is a year-long fundraising effort. Should I pass it to Ronan?
Yeah, go for it. So hi everybody, I'm Ronan. I'm also a junior from Lagunitas, California, which is also in the Bay Area. At Bates, I study environmental studies and sociology. Outside of my academics, however, I'm involved in the Harvard Center for Community Partnership as a Bonner leader there. Additionally, I am a crew captain for Bates EMS, which is our emergency medical service on campus, and I am the president of the Bates Outing Club. Sorry, and I'll throw it over to Keon.
Hi everyone, my name is Keon, and I use he, him pronouns. I'm a sophomore, so this is my 2nd year here. I'm a politics and anthropology double major. In addition to working with admissions, I'm also a assistant manager of campus activities and traditions. Some clubs I'm involved with include WRBC, which is our radio station on campus, and also the Middle East and North Africa Club. I'm a US citizen, but I actually grew up overseas in Qatar. So if there are any international students, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. And yeah, I can pass it on over to Nicole.
Hi everyone, it's good that you're able to join us today. My name is Nicole Kumbola. I'm a senior chemistry major with an extensive background in earth sciences and computational studies. I'll be studying my master's in chemistry this coming fall at Texas A&M. I am on campus. I'm really involved. I was involved with the academic department. So I spent the summers doing research. And I worked at the end of my 1st year, I worked with the environmental science department and computational studies. At the end of my 2nd year, I worked with the earth sciences department. At the end of my 3rd year, through our Center of Purposeful Work, I got funding to do a remote internship. Then outside of that, I'm involved with the residence life, so I can answer on housing. I am an international student from Zimbabwe. You can see my flag behind me. And yeah, I'm really excited to answer all the questions you have for tonight.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all for introducing yourselves. And luckily, I think students really heard my beck and call, and we're already getting a couple questions in the Q&A. So I'm just going to start with those. And the first one I think we should dive into is, what do you enjoy most about Lewiston-Auburn? So if people would just not mind setting the scene for us, talking a little bit about what it's like to live in Lewiston, what it's like to go to Bates, maybe touching a little bit on community engagement. I'll pass it off to Ronan first, and then people can add on as they please.
Yeah, of course. So I'd love to talk a little bit about the Lewiston-Auburn area, but also community engagement. So the Lewiston-Auburn area, just a little bit of scene setting for you, is a gorgeous town within the Maine area. It's actually the second largest metropolitan area in Maine, about 100,000 people or so. So for some people, that's a large city. Other people, that's going to be a lot smaller than you're used to. But what's amazing about the Lewiston-Auburn area and what makes it one of the most unique places in Maine is its history with immigration. It's a place that has been built by immigration since the original French-Canadian immigration in the 18th century, from continued Irish to Italian immigration. Most recently, we've had a large influx of both Somali and Somali Bantu refugees coming into the Lewiston-Auburn area, but additionally since then, a variety of African origin groups coming within the Lewiston-Auburn area. And what's amazing about this is it creates a culturally rich and beautiful environment to live, learn, and play. The local high school in the area, just for example, has over 30 languages spoken in it. So there's plenty of opportunities for students to both enjoy the Lewiston-Auburn area, but also get involved in the Lewiston-Auburn area. I'll quickly touch on community engagement, but I know also my fellow panelists have talked or have a lot of experience with it. So if in community engagement itself, the general theory is that community service is when you go into a community and say, oh, we know best, we're just going to do whatever we think is going to be best for this community. It does not work well, it does not have good outcomes. So what Bates participates in is called community engagement, where instead we work with community partners and community leaders. We ask them, okay, what do you need help with? How can Bates as an academic institution help to continue to bolster the already amazing community within the Lewiston-Auburn area, and what can the Harvard Center and Bates College do to help with that? And what's great about that is not only are students able to get in the community and interact through a bunch of different internships, apologies, not internships, community engagement opportunities, but also internships. But students are learning along the way and able to take that information, whether it's back into their classes or just in to more round out their general education. I'll stop there because I know we have other things to talk about here, but I would love to hear some community engagement opportunities too, if we have time for that.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ronan. So that was a really good way to set the scene of what it's like in Lewiston, a little bit of how Bates students get involved in Lewiston. I'd love to hear maybe if a couple people could share some things that we do for fun at Bates, some things we do for fun in Lewiston-Auburn area specifically, maybe everybody's favorite spot in the town. That would be awesome. Whoever wants to go first.
I can start. So pretty much right next to Bates, maybe a 5-minute drive, we have a bird sanctuary. It's called Thorncrag, and it's beautiful year round. We started this semester, my friends and I, just going to Thorncrag and sledding, which was a whole lot of fun. Usually when it's warmer out, so maybe in a couple weeks time from now, and in the fall, we like to go on hikes a lot, just bird watching. I know like a few people get up at 4 a.m. And drive out to Thorncrag just to bird watch, which is like good for them, but that's like not something most of us could do, I don't think, unless it's your thing. But yeah, I think Thorncrag is just a great example of like the many ways you can enjoy the outdoors, not only at Bates and in the Lewiston-Auburn community, but also in Maine in general. Other than that, there are some great dining options in Lewiston-Auburn as well. Commons is fantastic as is, but if you're kind of craving something new, we also have some great food.
Yeah, to speak to the food in Lewiston-Auburn, I think one of my favorite spots is Italian Bakery. It's like a pretty easy walk from campus, probably like a 20-minute walk. And they have like really, really good pastry, but also like breakfast sandwiches and coffee. So that's definitely one of my favorite spots. And then for what a lot of Bates students do on weekends, Bates has a lot of different events for us. So Bates students are really into their theme dances, which sounds a little strange. But Bates students get really into them. Everybody gets dressed up. So we have like an 80s and 90s and a millennials dance, as well as semi-formal dances. So those are really, really fun. And there's a ton of pizza from Domino's there. And yeah, so those are a really great time. Some of my favorite events on campus.
Wonderful. Thanks, everyone. That was an awesome first question that we just did a little dive into. Transitioning a little bit, another question that we got was speaking a little bit to the Bates College liberal arts curriculum. So I'd love to hear if somebody could first touch a little bit on what liberal arts means, what a liberal arts curriculum means, and how our curriculum is unique at Bates. And then maybe if we want to talk a little bit about relationships with professors and other sort of draws that that are really important to the Bates academic experience, that would be awesome. And I don't know if maybe Nicole, you want to start off on this one. Thank you.
Yeah, so at Bates, we have, I think one thing that's really unique about Bates is you have the graduation requirements, but you can take classes, any classes within any department to satisfy those requirements. So I'm told, like some of my friends have told me that they have to take a certain class in order to like satisfy like a writing requirement or an art requirement. But at Bates, so I am a STEM student, but I have a general education concentration in globalization. And I actually studied abroad on a multi-country program, which started off in New York, went to Argentina, went to Spain, and ended up in South Africa. So I was looking at sustainability and social justice in urban environments. So the liberal arts education allowed me to, so first of all, the liberal arts education allows you to be versatile, like to take as many classes and or at least also being able to focus on something. So I'm interested in environmental chemistry. So I was able to take a sociology class. I was able to take an anti-Blackness and environment class. I was able to take environmental geochemistry, hydrogeology, your quantum chemistry. So like the deep chemistry classes, but we can't talk about the environment when we are not talking about the people who inhabit there. We can't talk about the people when we don't talk about immigration. We can't talk about immigration when we don't talk about globalization. So like in all these conversations that continue to happen, they happen in class and they also happen outside of class as well through clubs, so when you get to Bates, you have what's called a first year seminar that you are enrolled in. So your first year seminar professor is actually your academic advisor. And for me, they advised I take a sociology class so that I can learn more because I grew up outside of the US. So I grew up in a homogeneously Black society. So when I got to Bates, not only was I learning about race, I was actually experiencing it. And so the only way I could get to understand my experience at Bates and my experience as a Black woman in America was to take a sociology class. And in as much as I'm a chemistry student, it really helped me to understand myself and to understand the world around us. So I'd say those are, in my other experiences with professors, because I've spent time doing academic research, I would say my professors actually became my mentors as well. As a first generation student, studying far away from home, different time zone, different weather. My parents are sleeping right now. So if anything goes down, the only people who can help me are actually people at Bates. So I've really appreciated that. And I've really have really managed to form community. And the program that I'm going to for my master's was actually recommended by my hydrogeology professor. So like these professors will look up to you. So you just reach out to them and express interest and you can explore. You don't have to know what you want to do. Like I came into Bates thinking I'm going to do a double major in geology, actually. Then at some point I was a double major. Then at some point I had a minor. Then at some point I didn't have a minor. But I'm graduating and I'm studying my master's. So yeah.
Okay, I think I have a strange combination of majors and minors, so I can talk a little bit about the interdisciplinary nature of the Bates program. So yeah, so I mentioned that I'm a politics and dance double major and education studies minor, and I feel like if I didn't go to Bates, I would not be able to do all those things and graduate on time. Um, but I think what made it possible was my professors. That's really what drew me, especially to the politics and education departments. Every class I took, every professor was so wonderful, so welcoming, and I'm sure this is true for all the departments at Bates. And they want to work with you and help you create the best academic calendar or schedule for you throughout your 4 years, and make sure you're, hitting all the requirements inside your different majors or minors or general education concentrations. Um, but also that you're getting to explore other things outside of those. So I do not feel like every class I've taken at Bates is a dance or politics or education class, which has been really wonderful. And it's also wonderful because there are classes that are like, hitting things in both my majors or minors. So I've taken a dance education class that's fulfilled requirements. Right now, I'm taking a class called Education, Politics, and Reform. That is a requirement for both education and politics. Um, so I think Bates does a really good job of, letting you dive deep into a bunch of different things, and do, some heavy study in those things, but also try a lot of other things at the same time.
Thank you all for answering. So yeah, I think that we'll probably be touching a little bit more on academics and liberal arts throughout the next 40 minutes because it definitely comes up a lot. But switching gears again, another question that we got was, what drew you to Bates during your college search process? And a more broad way to ask this question is, why did you choose Bates? And I think maybe all four of you could definitely share your why Bates, and maybe we'll start with Keon.
Yeah, for sure. I love this question because I really had no idea where I was going to go to school. Coming from an international background, I didn't know if I wanted to go East Coast or West Coast, or pick a small school or a big school. So as I did more research and did more studying about like what college is like, I really gravitated towards this idea of the liberal arts college, which I know we just touched on. But just that the idea that you aren't really like fixed down a certain path, you can kind of graduate and find your way around the world, no matter what your major is, something that really attracted me. And so I made my way over to the NESCACs, which are all fantastic schools, I should say. But what really drew me into Bates in particular was its tradition, its ethos. I came for an admitted student stay before I decided to come to Bates. Like I was pretty sure I was going to come to Bates, but I wanted to go to that admitted student stay just to make sure. And when I did go, I just fell in love with the campus. I fell in love with the academics. I went to 2 master classes, which were taught by professors, and they were both really, really fun. And most of all, I fell in love with the people. It's definitely really unfortunate that you guys can't be here in person to feel what like the aura of the campus is like. But I must say, it's definitely the best part of going to Bates is the people you'll meet. And Nicole, you touched on this, but it's not just your peers, but it's also your professors who, in many cases, often become your mentors as well. And so all of those reasons were kind of why I chose Bates. And I'm really glad that it's lived up to my expectations, the expectations I had while I was doing my college search process. Ronan, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, no, I'd love to. No, so for me, and I think this is definitely a theme you'll just notice throughout the panel, is community. And really, it was the community that drew me to Bates and got me super interested in it. Both the community engagement aspect from our friends at the Harvard Center for Community Partnership. I was aware of their program, but really being on campus again to learn about the community engagement opportunities and truly just the theory of community engagement, which coming to Bates was the first time I've ever heard of it. It really just transformed my view of what it means to be working within a community and to support a community. And it was something that I wanted to be a part of and really drew me to Bates. But past that, just the community aspect, really it's the community on campus, but also the community off campus. Something that I think is really unique about Bates is I not only have connections and relationships with people on the Bates campus, but I actually have connections and relationships with people off the Bates campus in the Lewiston-Auburn area. This is really important for me, especially coming from California, which is a little bit of a hop, skip, and a jump away, and my family has no connections out on the East Coast. So knowing that I have connections in the Lewiston-Auburn area, I have people who I've worked with in the past I can talk to, it really makes it feel like home. So it's not just I feel home at Bates, it's really that I feel home in the Lewiston-Auburn area, I feel home in Maine. So it makes it a lot easier to be on campus, but also just a lot more of an enjoyable experience. And I'm proud of the fact that I'm able to say that I have a greater social circle and greater connections than just Bates itself. And I can throw it over to Nicole.
Yeah, I'm gonna address also another question in the Q&A on like the international student experience. So I think most of the thing that's on people's mind is like navigating the application when you cannot visit. So unlike my peers, I only learned about Bates the day I landed to come to school with my 2 suitcases. So I just committed. So how did I go about the process? I actually applied early decision. Bates was my first choice. So when I was looking at Bates, the website, emailing the admissions people, for me, it was the response rate. Like I knew I was gonna be far from home. So this is true for people from the West Coast or like, yeah, mostly from the West Coast and like other internationals as well. Like I wanted to know that there's someone who's going to be able to respond to my question. Because if anything happens right now, my family can only take action within 24 hours because of time zones. So I wanted to know that someone would be there for me. So I looked up and I talked to other international students, and I knew that Bates has a very strong and supportive international student body. And we have a very strong international dean as well. And the Bates alums are still in touch. The Bates international alums stay in touch with each other, and like they help me with my applications to grad school. I have visited them, and I've gone to Kenya to visit an alum, and I continue to like travel. Like I'm proud to say one of the Bates alum is the current Miss Rwanda 2021. So like it just speaks to like the community of international students. So I'd say, I think one thing that people are afraid of when you're coming from far from home is like, what's gonna happen? I don't have family around, but Bates students take care of each other. Your classmates will take care of you. The sophomores, the juniors, the professors, everybody looks after each other. So I'd say that's the international experience. Another thing is obviously the weather. It's something that you learn. It's like you learn, like after the first snow, you're like, okay, these boots don't work. Maybe I need to get a better pair. And maybe this jacket is too thin. I need to get another one. Then once you go through the first winter, it goes better. Like you just go uphill from there. And the Dean of International Students will help you buy the coats that you need, and will also help you with like international travel, like what's the best way, what's the most convenient way. And I also want to, I'll put the link into the chat. We have the Bates podcast. I think it's called Bates Beyond Borders, where the international students share their experience from like packing. So if you want any packing tips, or anyone who's flying in, if you want any packing tips, or to hear about orientation or anything, like it's just a very fun podcast. So I'm in the pilot one, so you can hear about my flight to the US as well. So I'm gonna put the link in the chat box.
So I applied to Bates regular decision, and I applied to a lot of schools. I was very unsure where I was going. My mom actually went to Bates, but that is not the reason I'm at Bates. I really did not want to come here because she came here. And then I had an overnight the night before Admitted Students Day, and echoing what everybody else said, the community at Bates is just really wonderful. I really like the people I was around. People are genuinely nice. People, were engaging me in conversation about what I was interested in, and like some random senior from some random high school they didn't know. And there's also Bates students are really big about holding the door. Bates has like a whole hold the door campaign. But it's small things that just make being at Bates really, really wonderful. I also think that Bates is a really collaborative academic environment, which I think can be, set us apart from some other small liberal arts schools, because schools that are really selective there can be a really competitive environment between students, and I've never felt that at Bates. Dylan mentioned she works in the peer tutoring center, and that's like one of those examples of just like students who are helping students at Bates, and I really think that's like foundational to our academic environment here. And then the dance program was the other thing that drew me to Bates. It's a really, really wonderful program. If anybody is interested in Bates dance, I would love to talk about it more, but if not, I won't. So yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you all for sharing why you chose Bates. That's definitely a question that I think helps prospective students all the time understand why we all showed up here. The next topic I want to move into, we have a couple questions about party culture at Bates, social scene at Bates, what do Bates students do for fun? And as students, I think we all do really different things on the weekends. So I think I'll start off with Ronan, and we can obviously pass this on to anybody else that wants to share.
Yeah, I'll start us off just kind of thinking about party culture and such at Bates. So I did see one person kind of phrase around the idea like, is Bates a good school if you're interested in party and such? And the way that I'm going to answer this question is talk a little bit about social structure at Bates and talk about the social scene, because we're very fortunate at Bates that we have a diverse and just a lot of different social structures here at Bates. So a couple things I'll note. First off, we have no Greek life at Bates, and we're very proud of that fact. And a big reason that we don't have Greek life is because it creates an unsafe party culture. So by not having Greek life, it ensures that many of our events can be a lot more inclusive, and that we don't run some of the risks that come with the Greek life. So with that said, a lot of social events are centered around the clubs at Bates. So clubs will hold various social events both during the week and also on the weekend. So that is what a lot of students end up doing. But I think another important thing to note is really the biggest social events of the year are the ones put on by the school, which makes it super fun. Things like the 80s dance, the 90s dance, the millennials dance, puddle jump, the fall concert, Halloween dance, just to name a couple of the big events. What's super fun about these is almost everybody comes to these events. It's a really fun atmosphere. And what's great about that is everybody gets to be a part of the biggest parties of the year. And when it comes to, just party culture in general, students are very understanding of the fact that, some students might be more interested in partying, others are not that interested in partying, and that's okay. We run the spectrum here at Bates, and a big part of being at Bates is you get to be your full self and your authentic self. So if you like to party, that's great. There are going to be options for you. If you don't like to party, that is awesome too. There's a lot of options too. And I'm sure Keon could talk some about cats too, because you guys have been killing it with the events this year. But, to just kind of wrap up things there, if we're thinking about other parts of party culture too, alcohol, drugs and such, just to quickly touch on that. There is not pressure around those things on campus. There are options for those we have healthy living options. So if students want to be in a space where those things are not going to be, we completely have options for that. And we also have various policies, which we won't get into regarding Bates itself. But if you are interested in more of the nitty gritty, I do encourage you to take a look. Additionally, if your parents are asking, that's a great place to also send them to take a look. But that's just a general summary. I think the important takeaway is that it is what you want to make it, and there's going to be no pressure for you to lean one way or the other.
Yeah, so as Ronan mentioned, I work with campus activities and traditions. Basically, we put on small scale programming, so like events that last a few hours in the weekends or in the weekdays. So I know there's like a bouquet making thing going on, which I don't know if my roommate and I will go to. But yeah, there's also video game tournaments, which I've planned in the past before. We're just coming off of Winter Carnival, which is our annual like winter seasonal event. You guys may have heard of the puddle jump, and that's basically like what comes at the end. Is we have this kind of like lake/pond on campus, which we call the puddle. It freezes over during the winter, and we jump in for fun. And I mean, yeah, that's again, this happens like once a year, so it's not really like a party thing. But I'll just echo everything Ronan said. There's no pressure, honestly. And this is me speaking. I have friends who don't drink. I have friends who do. And you would probably get a lot of, not dirty looks, but you would probably be shunned if you were pressuring someone to drink, not the other way around. And so that's how I like to, but I mean, of course, there's no pressure to not drink as well, I guess. So I hope that answers your question. On the weekends, I mean, you can probably find a party if you really wanted. Certainly it's not happening this semester because of COVID, but I mean, I've only been here 1 year, so I don't feel, and half of that has been COVID. So I don't know if I can answer that question fully.
Wonderful. Well, yeah, absolutely. I just sent a link out for our Ask a Student like overview. But again, if you have any more detailed questions, you can obviously email any Bates student workers in admission. We love to email. The next question that I want to tackle is a really, really good one. And it's what does the typical freshman schedule look like? Do you have classes every day? How many classes would you typically have in a day? So sort of like a day in the life, not just for freshmen, but generally at Bates. This is one of my favorite questions because I think our college schedules are super different than our high school schedules. And I don't know if somebody wants to tackle this one first. Yeah, Nicole, why don't you go ahead and start us?
Yeah, I will speak on the STEM schedule so that other people can jump in because it's very different. So I'll just walk you through like my typical week when I still remember when I was a first year. So my first class was actually at 11. I had chemistry at 11 to 12. Then I had Calc 2, 2:30 to 2:30 to 4, I think. So my calc was Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Then my chemistry was every day from 11 to 11:55. On Tuesday and Thursday, from 9 to 10:30, I had my first year seminar. Then what other class am I missing? Yeah, 9 to 10. Yeah, so I think I've said all my classes. Then the other class I think was in the afternoon, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So you don't have classes all the day, and you have liberty to choose the classes you want. If you want to do 8 a.m. Sometimes the interesting thing is when you get to your sophomore year, like somehow, I don't know, it so happens that the required classes, sometimes they're at 8 a.m. or they're at like 2:30. So you have no choice, you have to take it. But for the most part, you have liberty to choose if you want to take, because my sophomore year, I realized actually having a night class worked out for me because I could spend time in the lab. Oh yeah, I forgot. I used to have 2 labs on my my winter semester. So when you're a STEM student, it's advised, and I would advise you, if you're considering STEM, to take chemistry your first year. If you don't have AP credit, or like if you're just considering, I would really advise you take chemistry or Calc 2 or the intro environmental science, the intro bio. Just at least take 2 intro STEM classes that will help you get ahead, because when you get to sophomore year, by the time you're declaring, you have to take 200 levels. Then if you're considering to go abroad, I would say start thinking about it your sophomore year, fall semester, so that you can get ahead with that. So somebody asked about study abroad. I might just address it right now. So study abroad experiences are different. So what happens is you go speak to the Center of Global Education, and they'll ask you questions like, what are you looking for? So some students are looking for a language experience. Some students are looking for a cultural experience. Some students are looking for a specific experience. So I was looking for social justice and sustainability. So that was specific, and I wanted to go for certain credit. So another thing that you do is you sit down with your current department and you figure out, you make what's called a degree plan, and they help you see like when you're supposed to take a certain class, because some classes, so be mindful of that. Some classes are only offered in the winter semester or only offered in the fall semester. So if you miss it your sophomore year, your first year, you have to wait until your sophomore year. So that can kind of put you, quote unquote, behind, but it doesn't matter. Like I left and went abroad, and I'm taking classes right now with juniors, and I'm still okay. So I'd say just keep in touch with your advisor and they'll help you figure out. And another part on the study abroad, there are different types of institutions. So you can be registered with the university. So like I had a friend who went to the University of Cape Town, or for me, I was registered with the program. So we were moving around with the program. There's also, you can study abroad for a whole year at the same institution, or you can go to 2 different countries. So it just depends. And I think the most popular site is like Florence, Italy. I think, yeah, Florence is a popular destination in Denmark and China. Yeah, those are like the popular destinations for study abroad.
Thank you, Nicole. Yeah, and I'll just jump in. I just sent in a link to our study abroad website there. And what's awesome is that you can go ahead and just filter. You can search for our study abroad programs right now, even if you don't go to Bates. And so you can filter by your academic interest, or if you know you want to go to a specific continent, you can check out the programs that we offer already. And we have if you want to go somewhere, oh, sorry, I just realized my internet might be a little messed up. Sorry if I'm cutting out. But if you want to go somewhere and it's not approved, it's really easy to petition. I just had a friend last year. She studied abroad at the London College of Fashion, which I don't think any Bates student had ever done before. And so she just went through a really quick petition process and she had an awesome time. We came home a little early, but not a big deal. And yeah, just to circle back to the first question that we were tackling, which is just a little bit about the schedule. I just really love to stress this to students, to high school students. When you're in high school, you're in class, you wake up at 7:30 a.m. You're in class from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. You have 30 minutes to eat lunch. Then you have 5 hours of extracurriculars, whether that's sports, student government, whatever you do after school, maybe taking care of a younger sibling, maybe going to work. And then you have 5 hours of homework. You go to sleep at 1 a.m. You get 5 hours of sleep, and then you wake up at 6 the next day. That's not what college is like. Your college experience is going to be so vastly, vastly different from that. At Bates, you're probably going to be taking 4 classes at once. Each of those 4 classes are going to meet for probably a combined 8 hours a week. I don't know. You're in class for a really, really small amount of time in the scheme of things, and especially in comparison to high school. So it's something that I encourage you all to think about as you're framing, what am I looking for in college? Like, what kind of college experience am I looking for? Know that you're going to have a ton of free time. And so that's why we're talking about community and clubs and community engagement and like all of this stuff, is because you have a lot of free time. And obviously you're going to need to go to the library and get your work done and study, things that normal college students have to do. But you're also going to figure out, how do I take up all this free time? So I just wanted to put that out there as sort of a way that I like to frame, the way that we talk about your college experience, is that you're going to have so much free time, something that you all are definitely not used to right now. And so, yeah, study abroad link is in there. Another question that we've gotten twice now, which is super interesting, is what is Bates looking for in an applicant? And I've worked in admissions for 3 years now, and I don't have an answer to that. So I will say that's a really hard question to answer. And as I think that you'll be seeing throughout hearing the 5 of us speak to you, we're all really different people. We've come from, as a combined, 3 different countries, a ton of different places. We study different things. I think that all 5 of us bring something really different to Bates. So I definitely don't think that there is a concrete answer, but I wonder if the 4 of you could say something specific that you knew that you were sort of putting forward in your application to college, something that you were really excited to show to colleges. Or maybe if you do have an answer to that question that I don't, you can go ahead and share it. Does somebody want to kick us off?
Sure.
Yeah, Ronan, thank you.
Yeah, I'll both talk a little bit about what I did in my application, also just kind of regurgitate some things I've heard from past admissions officers and other panels. So this kind of ties into what I'll be talking about, but I think one of the most important things to think about with your Bates application, I think this can generally go for most liberal arts school applications, is they're doing holistic admissions. And essentially that's a very fancy word for saying they're going to look at you as a whole person. You're not getting admitted just based off of your GPA. You're not getting admitted just based off your SAT, sorry, almost said the wrong acronym there, SAT scores or ACT scores. You're being admitted based off of what you've done over the course of your high school, years, but also a lot of what you've done outside of it. In my Bates application, I really emphasized something that was big for me during my time in high school was a program I did with the Golden Gate National Recreation Area where I was spending summers working in various parks and such. I felt like at times I was learning more doing that work than I was learning in my high school classes. So I made sure to really emphasize that in my application. I wrote my common application essay on that. And for those not familiar with the common application, no worries, you'll get acquainted with it. But essentially, it is a generalized application which you can send to something over like 700 schools in the United States. I'm not going to belabor that since there are other things to talk about. However, I think that's honestly the best advice I can give is really taking that holistic admissions to heart. Another big thing I'll recommend is really consider the fact that Bates is truly test optional. It has been test optional since the 80s. And that means that we are really good at judging an application that has turned in a test and one that is not. And the best advice I've gotten straight from many admissions officers is that if your scores are hitting the margins that Bates has in the past year, you should submit them if you're proud of them. If you're not proud of your score or they're just not hitting those margins, don't submit your test score because it can only hurt you if you submit a test score which is below those margins. But if you don't submit it, you're judged exactly the same as someone who did submit those test scores. So that's something to really consider and think about, and especially if you know that Bates is going to be one of your top schools and thinking about test optional schools and thinking about just COVID in general when it comes to testing. Really remember that Bates has done this for a long time. And if you're looking for a great test optional school, really think about applying to Bates for that reason too. But I'll stop elaborating. We can pass it to someone else.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ronan. So I think that we are, oh yeah, Nicole, go for it.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think for me, I think I was putting forward my story and like my story as it is. Like I come from two different worlds. And I think there's this assumption that has been put out in the media over like African students of like, oh, we come from like extreme poverty and like all this. And that is not me. Like, so my story was I was an intern at the US Embassy Education Office. So that is what I was sharing. And today I continue to make that clear that we need to change the status quo. Like there is no, I will not go on and on, but for my point is I was sharing my story, and even for graduate school, I was sharing that I'm interested in environmental chemistry. I want to create a clean and safe environment for women in sub-Saharan Africa, and that is my story. I've lived that story, and I want to, up until I get my PhD, I want to be able to be in those spaces where I can fight so that everybody gets that clean environment. So for me, it's always been my story, and I always say it whenever I'm given a chance to speak about it. So I'd say you also have your own story. You have your story from high school, you have your story growing up in a certain place, you have a story from your track team, you have a story from like the instrument you play. It's the little things. I talked about the garden. I remember I wrote about I was doing gardening with my mother during my gap year, and that was my my gap year essay. Like, what were you doing? I was in, like, when I was not interning, I was gardening with my mother, and I spoke about that experience going, because it's a process, like, you know, with gardening. So yeah, it's your story, and make sure you shine with it. Like I say, like, whatever happens, my story has been put forward at Bates, and I hope that they'll love it. And I'm glad they did, and here I am, and I'm glad Texas A&M loved my story. And yeah.
Thank you, Nicole. I love your story. Nicole's one of the most inspirational people I know. Whenever I need a hype talk, somebody to gas me up, sometimes I call Nicole. Thank you for sharing, everyone. So we are going to move forward. I think we've done a pretty good job of answering most of your questions, so please keep them coming. I'm going to touch on a couple of topics that you all have not asked about that I feel like maybe are interesting to talk about. I'm going to start with housing and food at Bates. I'm sure that maybe you all have already done your own research on this, but hearing just a little bit about housing, how housing works, freshman year housing, and then moving forward, other housing opportunities, what it's like to live at Bates, and then obviously a little bit about Commons. I love Commons. I think food at Bates is really good. So if people want to touch on that too. And I don't know if maybe Keon, you want to start with chatting a little bit about housing?
Yeah, for sure. So once you're admitted into a college, hopefully Bates, you'll get an email sometime in like May asking you to fill out like a housing survey. And that housing survey will ask you for your preferences, not only on where you want to live on campus. For example, at Bates, we have mixed year housing. So basically you can be put in a dorm with like first years, which you will be, sophomores, juniors, and seniors. That's the first option. There's an option for only first year housing, which is what I preferred, and what I got was a dormitory, pretty standard dorm, but it's pretty much only freshmen, which is a lot of fun. And the third option is like a Victorian style house, which Bates has a lot of. They basically house like 30 people. It's literally one house with like 30 people in it. And on the outside, you would find that ridiculous, but you go inside and the rooms are spacious, but also very condensed. And so, yeah, so those are the three options. And so in that survey that you pick your preferences for where you want to live, you have the option to, or not the option, you're asked to list your lifestyle preferences as well. And that's only used to pair you up with a roommate. So they ask, how often or when do you go to bed? How do you like your room, like temperature wise? Are you neat or messy? Do you expect to have people over a lot? Do you drink? Do you smoke? Questions like that, that I would suggest you answer honestly. And you might not be paired with someone who's exactly like you. So I definitely was not. But my roommate and I, my first year, we got along great. We had a fantastic year together that was unfortunately cut short. This year, I'm living in a house on Fry Street, which is as I mentioned, our street with a lot of Victorian style houses. If you guys want to pull up a Google Maps, it's cool to check out. I mean, it's just a street filled with like 24 houses, and it's a lot of fun. And I find that most students at Bates like to live on Fry at least once, 1 year during their 4 years here. But yeah, I mean, there are also themed houses. So for example, there's a social justice house on Fry Street. There's a environmental sustainability house, and I live in a themed house as well. I actually live in the music house. In normal years, we would be having concerts like in the basement, but that's not the case this year, unfortunately. But yeah, housing at Bates I find is pretty acceptable. The rooms aren't broom closets. You'll get along with your roommates. 90% of the time, probably more than that, honestly. And if you don't, there's a really quick process, streamlined process for you to find alternative housing options. If there are any specific questions about housing, I'd be happy to answer. Nicole, I know you work in housing, so I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, I was just gonna add that when you choose a space, you live with 10 or 12 other students, which make up what's called a first year center. And each first year center has a sophomore, a junior, or a senior who's called a junior advisor. So they are your primary resource guide. They just help you within your first days and throughout your first year to just figure out things like, where's the laundry machine? I'm interested in this club. What should I do? So they just connect you. And I want to, so at Bates, we call them junior advisors, so they don't write up anyone. They don't do any disciplinary involved. They are there to form community, and I really appreciate that. So I've been a junior advisor, and right now I'm what's called a resident assistant. So I'm now for the upperclassmen. So now I live with seniors. So I live in a senior house. My first year I lived in the healthy living house. And I also wanted to, going back to the party scene question, I personally was in a healthy living house my first year, and my second year And I'm that person. For me, my weekend is I just want to be home, and that is okay. So I think there's sometimes so much pressure on like, oh my God, you have to go out because you're in college. There are other cool things like right now, the campus activities have like cool things like painting, like yoga, like some low key chilled. So I just wanted to also like add that perspective as well. Like you don't have to go out. Like if you just want to chill at home, and your junior advisors also have like movie nights. They do like game nights. There's this what's the game club called? Like I think they're so cool. Like I wish I could join them.
Discordians.
Exactly. I feel like they're the coolest. Yeah, March Madness. Like there's just so much fun things to do. And when it's like the football season, oh, that's even the best season as well. Is it like winter? Sorry, I don't watch football. But like it's always like a fun time as well. Like the Bates Campus Safety, they do like wings on the Super Bowl day. Okay, let me stop using the wrong terms. But you get the point. Yeah.
Thank you both. Yeah, so that's just a little bit of an overview. Housing at Bates. Definitely check out the link I sent about the virtual housing tour so you can take a look at some of the Fresh Street houses that Kian was mentioning. Something else that I just wanted to touch on is short term. And I don't know if you all have heard about short term, if you've seen it and you're like, what is 441? Or if you guys have already done some research. But short term is definitely a super key part of the Bates experience that I think really sets us apart from other colleges. So I will pass this along to Isabel to kick us off to chat about short term.
Yeah, so if you don't know what short term is, so at Bates we take about 4 classes in the fall semester. We go home for winter break. We come back. We take another 4 classes for the winter semester, and then we have a 1-week break. And then we have what is now about a 4-week mini master basically called short term. So every student either takes one class or they're engaging in research or a professor, or sometimes students are just doing a campus job. There's also sports terms. Some students stay on campus and do their, like, if they're on a spring sport team, they'll play their sport and stay on campus. So there's a lot of different options, but most students take the class. And every Bates student has to do 2 short terms, but you can't do more than 3. So basically this makes Bates students really competitive for summer internships because they can start that internship like a month before a lot of other students. But basically it's really wonderful being on campus for short term. It's like finally warm in May. And so I've only had 1 short term because of the pandemic. But my freshman year, I took a class called Tour Teach Perform, which was that dance and education class I mentioned earlier. Definitely something I would never have the opportunity to take during the normal semester. So for 3 weeks, we were creating basically educational theater, I will call it. And so it wasn't like all dancers. There was like 2 dancers in the class and just a lot of different people, which was really fun. So we created this like 15-minute short little educational theater on a science. And then for the last 2 weeks, we toured to 10 different schools in the Lewiston-Auburn area, and we performed our piece, and we did workshops with 1st and 2nd graders. It was a really, really fun time, and it was a really cool way to integrate 2 of my interests, but also do something I really would not get to do during the rest of the semester at Bates, or the normal semesters at Bates. So yeah, short term is just a really wonderful time on campus.
Wonderful. Thank you, Isabel. And yeah, I'll just add, you can also study abroad for a short term. I know we've chatted a little bit about study abroad, but basically I like to think of short term as an opportunity to do something that you couldn't do during the normal semester. So both actually, Ronan, Nicole, and I have all taken courses that are focused in outdoor education, environmental science, things that sort of require, if you really want to get into it, you have to get into a van and drive many hours to go somewhere super beautiful and do environmental science. And so as my major, short term is like my favorite time ever because I can actually spend hours outside, hours in the fields. And obviously Isabel shared her version of that. So there are tons of really unique opportunities, I would say, that short term offers that you just can't do during a normal semester when you're taking 3 other classes and 2 labs and field work and all that good stuff. So the last sort of topic that I want to touch on with our last couple of minutes. Oh, there is one more question. Oh, okay, perfect. Yeah. So I guess our last topic that we'll do is sports at Bates, athletics, NESCAC, club and intramural, all that good stuff. Does somebody want to start or shall I? I can start. I'm on it. And then if you guys want to add, so I don't know if you all have noticed, but none of the five of us here with you this evening are athletes. So the perspective I'm going to give is from a non-athlete, but that's okay. So Bates College is in the NESCAC, which is the New England Small College Athletic Conference. Other NESCACs that you may have heard of are Bowdoin and Colby. They're also in Maine with us, and a bunch of other wonderful small colleges in New England. We're a Division III school. There's, I don't know, 40 or 50. Oh, thank you, Isabel. There's 41, 31 Division III teams that we have at Bates, and then we have a couple Division I teams, which are our ski teams and our squash teams. I wouldn't do this without my without my tour guide friends here. So yeah, we're a Division III college, which basically just means that all the student athletes at Bates are also athlete students, and all of the regular people that go to Bates that don't play sports are beautifully integrated. I live with two athletes. It's really not, that's the first thing that I like to say. It's really, really not a separated community. I don't think that we have the athletes on one side of the dining hall and the non-athletes on the other. I think that athletes at Bates have a really wonderful advantage in that they come to Bates and they already have a team and they already know the people on their team. But that doesn't mean that they live with athletes or that they only go to class with athletes. It's a really integrated community. Something like 60 to 70% of Bates students do some sort of sport thing at Bates, whether that's a varsity NESCAC sport or that's a club or intramural sport. So I know I sent a link to somebody about our club sports here at Bates, but we have a ton of club and intramural teams. One of the most popular ones I know is our Ultimate Frisbee team. It's a club team. There's both men's and women's, and they travel, and I think they're really good. And so that's an example of a team that has probably like a higher level of commitment than other club teams, just because they're actually like traveling and competitively playing a ton of other teams all across the country. Not all of our club sports are like that. So that's just a quick overview. I don't know if somebody has anything else to add about athletics in general.
Yeah.
Cool.
I just
All
want,
right.
I,
Well,
yeah, I just want to talk about like the fitness center as well. Like it's open to everyone. There are also like hours which the athletes are also not there. And like there's also like physical education courses. This semester they were actually remote, which is really nice because some people just wanted to do yoga at home. There's also like physical education courses in the fall that were outside. So I think that was also nice. So there's plenty of ways to get involved. Then there's also like teams like the club sports, like club soccer is like really big. There's like club volleyball, club basketball. So there are different types of ways where you can choose your level of commitment. So I'm that person who just goes for the physical education ones, and I just register here and there once a month whenever I'm feeling motivated. But it's really good that like there's no pressure, and I think that's good. Yeah.
wonderful. Thank you for that final note, Nicole. So we are at 8 o'clock. I want to thank everybody for sticking with us and hearing us out. And thank you so much for coming to this event this evening. I did send a link for the Bates Ask a Student link. And so this is basically a great resource. If you have any specific questions, if you want to speak to a theater major or a geology major or somebody that's involved in any sort of thing that we are not involved in, feel free to email any of our student employees in admission. Our emails are also all on that website, so feel free to reach out. And we wish you the best of luck in your college search process, and we really hope you apply to Bates. So thanks so much and have a lovely evening, everyone.